Hey everyone, Antibreeder1, I'm here and welcome to my YouTube channel. I would like to do a really difficult topic and put it on this channel. So it's called The Problem with Child Prodigies. Why are so many child prodigies seen as nerds, and why do many of them not succeed in later life? Why are so many of them limited in scope, and why do many of them not develop into wholesome human beings? That is my question today. I have on my list of child prodigies a few of the intellectual ones: Adora Svitak, Akash Vukoti, and Tanmay Bakshi, who I will link or I will list in my description. Also, child actor prodigies such as Shirley and Macaulay Culkin, for example, who I can think of just off the surface of my mind. So, what do these child prodigies have in common? The idea is that some part of their brain or their intellect develops more quickly than the rest. And I'm going to put this in more figurative terms and say that they are unable to separate personal needs from objective truths. So their personal need to be accepted, to survive, and to protect their own integrity is subjected to other forms of learning. So with Tanmay, for example, he talked a little bit about artificial intelligence and how he's confident that it won't overrun the human race or the human species. It's a very confident and almost arrogant statement made by, he was probably 10 years old at the time. And I just thought this was someone who hadn't seen the poverty that exists in the world, haven't seen the amount of suffering that occurs in the world and the amount of fragility of the actual planet. This is someone who's well off, who lives in the first world, who is protected as a 10-year-old child, who does not suffer the exploitation or the abuse or the neglect that so many other children suffer. And if he had a bit of that in his life, it would create a huge amount of perspective in his life. Now, looking at my own experiences, I'm not a genius or anything. Maybe I am a genius in some ways, but I regard myself as wise more than a genius in cognitive terms. And between the years 1991 and 1992, I experienced a great amount of happiness and then sadness in my life, which was kind of like putting yourself, this hot iron, in a pot of cold water or ice or something, and the kind of cataclysm, the cathartic effect of that was amazing in my life, and it taught me so much. And at the same time, it taught me so much suffering and so much hardship, and also the relative importance of happiness and sadness. This is a little secret to living modeling, which I'm telling you right now, because when you model someone's life, as with Shakespeare's, his intellect, his genius, his humanity, if you want to call it that, the effect that it had on him at one point in his life allowed him to have this enculturation of this artist's mindset, which is so unique to Shakespeare. No child prodigy can emulate that because they are living in a protected world, which is so sterile, and they have the facts, they have the knowledge put out in front of them, and they're told that right is right and wrong is wrong. So let me try and delve back into this idea that child prodigies have a problem with their mindset. So I've mentioned that they are unable to separate personal needs from objective truths. Another thing is they're taught to think that their mind, brain, and self are inherently valuable. It comes into the survivalist belief of prodigies. They are so young and they don't know what existence really is. And I'm not saying they're stupid people, because they're not stupid people. They're just put into a predicament and a sort of irony which they're not fully appreciative of. And I'm not trying to feel superior to them and saying that, being at 43 years old, I'm more experienced than them. I think I am more experienced, but there's some things that I will never know that they do know, and there's some things that I know that they probably won't know as well. So their survivalist beliefs kick in at an early age, and they don't know how to envision a very great need. But if they were put in a situation like that, because you can analogize them to hot irons or hot rods or something, if they were to be placed in cold water all of a sudden and made to struggle and made to kick in with this huge dilemma in their life or something, they would learn a huge amount about themselves. But that's not going to happen because life is inherently stable in the vast majority of instances. It's the same thing with my clinicians. So my clinicians at Mental Health Authority, they're very, very arrogant and they're cocksure in the things that they believe in. And they have this particular paradigm which is not being shattered by contradiction in their lives. So if they were suddenly to understand telepathy, for example, or suddenly something really amazingly, dauntingly cataclysmic happen in their lives, they can't handle it. And they will learn so much, and they'll be put in a situation where they are completely dumbfounded if they were to learn telepathy or something. This is the situation I'm trying to put in with my clinician at the moment. He doesn't know very much. He's not a very smart person, but he's a nice person, in my opinion. And I'm just trying to introduce him to the concepts of climate change and the pandemic, for example, and the idea that, you know, the diseases that we cultivated in our society were actually born out of our own habits of eating animals, for example. This is something which is quite new to him, and he's not able to grasp the concepts very easily. And that's something that I like to see. I like to see people struggle. I like to see people challenge their own paradigms. So the next time you see a child prodigy and you appraise that child prodigy, I'd like you to think about their own predicament and to think and to realize that humans are all inherently obnoxious, but they also in some sense should be pitied for the fact that they have to deal with these ironies of life. Irony is a very big word for me because it encapsulates the idea that we have to think in dichotomies, we have to think in double terms about everything that we do. Like, I'm making this video, I'm living in a first world country, I have predicaments, I have problems of my own, and I can't fully understand the problems of everybody else, but I'm going to try my best to do that. I think that every, great genius and well-rounded person, not just a prodigy, has shortcomings. So Albert Einstein, for example, great character, had personality, had intellect as well, but never delved into politics because he felt that it was short-term and pretty trivial sort of endeavor to get into. I believe that politics is a waste of time as well, but I still see that Albert Einstein was not a great musician. He would never have been a Beethoven, for example. But if he'd set his mind to it, he might have a better chance than I am. But I still felt that that he had a certain arrogance to him. Picasso had arrogance as well. Just trying to think of other names who I can think of who had this arrogant mindset, slightly arrogant, slightly wholesome personality, but arrogance in a certain way. And I think that living in the moment, in the immediacy of our lives, is harder and harder for these people because they're so drawn up into the intellect and the imaginations of their own lives. So something to think about, folks, next time you're praising a child prodigy or a genius, in fact. See how wholesome they are as people. See how grounded they are. See how much they can connect with other people, because I've lost some of that myself. There's some things that I can't do. I can't engage with certain young people or older people, for example. So we're all living in our own world to some extent. Okay, folks, hope you've learned something from this video, and I'll see you next time with more news. Bye for now.